Welcome back to the StockTA podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Steuer, and in this episode, we're diving into Rua Gold, ticker RUA, and NZAUF on the OTC, a company fundamentally changing the approach to gold exploration in the South Pacific. Please note this interview is disseminated on behalf of Rua Gold. In a market hungry for high-grade, stable jurisdiction gold, Rua has quietly consolidated a massive historic gold field in New Zealand and is now aggressively pushing for a fast-track application of production. With this fresh TSX uplisting, a 19,000-meter drill program underway, and a path towards technical studies in 2026, the company's at a critical inflection point. To walk us through the roadmap, I'm joined by Rua Gold CEO Rob Eckford. Rob, it's a big year for your company. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks very much, Kevin.
So we're going to transition into Rob's going to share his screen and share his company presentation, and we're going to do a 10-minute high-level overview of what's going on.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we're New Zealand focused. We're really high-grade gold focused, and we're taking a bit of a different approach because of the jurisdiction we're in, where we actually want to move into development really quickly. And I'm not going to do the full run through of all these slides, but this presentation is available on the internet on our website at ruagold.com, and you can download it there. But I'll just touch on New Zealand because I mean that's probably new to your listeners. There's not too many New Zealand explorers out there at this stage, but New Zealand is the best jurisdiction in the world right now to be in. They're permitting mines in 6 months. It's the quickest permitting in the world right now, and so we're really excited to be able to bring a high quality project to the market. But not only that, we have the ability to actually go through the process of permitting it and getting into production in what is reasonable as an investor time frame. The worst thing you have as an investor is sometimes sitting on asset for 5 to 10 years waiting for permits to come through. So we want to take that away. New Zealand actually got voted #1 in the Fraser Index for Investment Attractiveness Index, which is a Fraser Institute bring out an annual survey of where is it good and where is it bad to invest in mining. And New Zealand's fared really well on the back of this new legislation that's coming in 2025. The one picture I just want to bring your attention to is we rang the bell on the New Zealand Stock Exchange in February, and that's a big milestone for us because we really want to be a Kiwi-centric company. We want the New Zealand population to be able to participate in the value creation that we're trying to achieve. And on stage with our chairman ringing the bell at the NZX was our mine minister, Minister Shane Jones. So you've got a politician standing on stage ringing the bell celebrating a mining company in New Zealand, and that speaks to the political support we had. We had our head of our iwi, our Maori group that surrounds us in Reefton. He was also in attendance and gave a speech on the day. So we've got the community support, the Maori support, and the political support, which is pretty rare in this day and age for the mining groups. But that's twofold. Partly, it's the people behind this. We are very New Zealand focused. You may be able to tell from my accent, I'm a Kiwi originally, but I've been living in Canada now for the last 10 years. Oliver Lennox King, our chairman, he's a Kiwi and left in his 20s. And we all generally left New Zealand because the economy didn't have good industrial jobs. They didn't have mining, the high paying jobs that mining provide. And so we've gone abroad and we've now got the opportunity to bring these skills home and build a mine in New Zealand. And that's what we're doing. We're not a bunch of explorationists. We've got depth in our team of building companies, building mines, building assets, and creating value for shareholders. And where that's really evident, and it's very rare for a company of our little 150 million size, is in our share structure. We've been listed since 2024. In March, we actually listed this company, and we've raised money 3 times, never with a warrant attached. It's always been a straight share, which is very rare for the junior mining end. And the other rare thing is we've got 41% of our structure is all institutionally held. Conwaves and the Franklins and the Libras, these guys go into big mining de-risk companies. So for them to come in our early stage assets speaks to, one, the assets in New Zealand, and two, the management team that are behind us. We've all made money for these guys in the past in our prior ventures, whether it be Rocks Gold, whether it be Aris Mining. And now it's time to bring on the next wave of value creation, and we're doing that through Rua Gold. So nice tight float. The 15% held by management is all shares purchased in the market or through the financing. So our average cost base is around 75 cents. There's no free shares sitting here. So we're writing checks alongside all our shareholders. And I'll bring your attention finally to the cash balance of 38 million at the end of January. That was after we just closed the financing in January for 33 million. Again, heavily oversubscribed. We had a book of about 65 million, which we had to cut back. So really well supported. Touching on the assets and conscious of time, I'm going to just do a really high level analysis of this. But again, on our website in the media page, you'll be able to see longer form interviews that I've done that really speak for over an hour if you so wish to talk through some of these assets. But we're going to start in the Hauraki Goldfield in the north of New Zealand. That's an epithermal style mineralization. That's where all the volcanoes and hot springs are. And then we're going to move down to Reefton, where we're going through that exploration and develop timeframe. But on the North Island, we've already got a gold field that's producing gold today. 15 million ounces of gold has come out of this area, predominantly through OceanaGold's assets. They've got two assets here. The Wahi open pit, which sits at the bottom of the screen here, that's been going for over 35 years. It's produced close to 10 million ounces, and it's still got 2 million ounces of reserves going. So we've got an active mining town in the northern area of New Zealand. And Wharekirauponga, OceanaGold's biggest development project right now, is of huge significance because that was the first mine to get permitted under this new fast-track legislation, and it got permitted in 114 days. So this is now actually in action where you're seeing a gold mine get permitted in record timing in a tier 1 jurisdiction. So really exciting. We've got the tenements just north of Glamorgan, and I skipped over it, and I'm just going to go back up the screen, but the brains of our operation is actually Simon Henderson. He's our geologist on the ground down in New Zealand. I run around Vancouver and North America and Europe looking for the money, and he's the one that is actively managing the drill program down in New Zealand. So he's focused down here, and he's a key part to the story because he actually discovered the Wharekirauponga anomaly. He's actually got over 25 years experience just on this picture. So when we're going into the neighboring territory with our tenements Glamorgan, we're not just looking at something and calling it identical to the neighbor without having seen the neighborhood. We've got the geologist that's been there for 25 years that knows exactly what he's looking for, who's had a discovery, and now he's moving 3 kilometers north and seeing something very similar. So this is a very binary side of the company. It's our blue sky, essentially. We're going to be starting to drill here in Q2. We've had our drill permit applications in. We've just finished all of our environmental tests that we needed to do. And it's going to see its first drill program starting off in the coming months. We've done all the precursors. We've had this asset for coming on 2 years now. So we've done all the surface work. We've done the soils, the rock chips, the mapping. We've done CSAMT, which you'll see at the bottom of the screen. It's really good for the resistivity of these epithermals. And so when we're coming in and designing our drill program, we have fairly good confidence that we've got the highest priority targets picked out. We're also overlaying a Verify AI platform onto this, and we can get into that in a future discussion. But we're using all the tools in our war chest, and then we're going to start drilling here in Q2. So really exciting. Investors should watch out for the drill assays coming out at the end of Q2. And we're essentially about to stumble on a huge epithermal deposit up in the north area of New Zealand. Again, very separate to the South Island and where we're going there. Now we're into this orogenic greenstone belt. It's a gold antimony style mineralization. It's the very exact same mineralization as your Southern Cross Golds or your Costerfields or your Fostervilles, so that Victoria, Bendigo, Ballarat region. And we're in an area of New Zealand that produced 2 million ounces of gold at an average grade of around 20 grams a ton back in the early 1900s. So we've wrapped up an entire gold field. We've got 4 rigs turning 24/7 right now, executing on a 19,000 meter drill program. And again, in the interest of time, this is a past producing district. So these old timers could go down 500 meters, 200 meters, 600 meters. They had limitations on the depth you could mine in the early 1900s. But our neighbor Endura Mining, they've proven that the mineralization goes down 1,500 meters. They've got a resource that starts underneath an old mine and goes down 800,000 ounces, 23 grams a ton, beautiful high-grade operation. They're going to be producing gold in December. And just to bring it back to this picture, they sit in that L shape right in the middle of our tenement package. So we've got a proof of concept. We know that there's a lot of gold left in these hills. It's on us to find them as quickly and as cheaply as possible. And that's where we're focused on Old Creek as our number one opportunity. It didn't have historic working because it was a gold antimony style mineralization. And the antimony was an inconvenient byproduct back in the early 1900s. Now antimony is on everyone's critical minerals list and everyone wants to get their hands on it. And we've got an ore deposit forming from surface. So we've just proven out 200,000 ounces at the very top of this deposit straight from surface that we put out our 43-101 on last week. Now we're going into the next phase of going deeper and extending long strike. So the 19,000 meters will essentially build out this resource in the next 6 months. We're aiming to get to close to 500,000 ounces, and that's what we're going to use to get permitted and get going. That gives us a nice starter mine, gets us cash flowing in these really healthy gold environments to then go and explore the rest of the Reefton district. So the timeline looks a little bit like this with the PEA underway right now. We'll be in that 6-month referral application program. And then by the end of the year, we're looking to submit a full mine permit with the aim of being a fully permitted operation with 500,000 ounces, a little sort of 10-year, 50,000 ounce per year mine for our starter, with upsize capacity as we continue to explore using our own cash flow and not being diluted for our capital structure. So that's really the high level overview of what we're doing. And I'll just add that the Reefton Goldfield, the land that we've accumulated, runs over 60 kilometers of proven mines that have operated in the past. And we're starting with one, but we've got a huge potential to turn this into an upsized multi-generational mine as we uncover the district. I think with that, Kevin, I'll pass it back to you and we can have some Q&A or some chart analysis.
Thank you for sharing your story. And we're going to look at at what our algorithm says for your stock price right now on the OTC. So still bullish, which is a really good score, considering how much gold and kind of the rest of the market has sold off the last 2 weeks. We have medium support at 1.07 and medium support again at $1. So you guys are sitting right in a good range where you have some medium support, and the chart isn't too stretched. You guys had a good start, end of Q4, start of Q1, and then sold off a little bit. And I think now you guys are in a good consolidating phase. You touched the 50-day moving average, which is a good pullback. Like you could pull up just about any chart of any gold miner, and they all about touched it in the past week or two. Your EMAs and MACD all look really good. And what I like best about your chart is there's no major overhead resistance. So a confluence of 2 and 3 is light. So you basically have light support at 1.13 or light resistance at 1.13 and 1.17. So the chart is set up really nice for you guys. If, gold has kind of traded sideways and traded down a little bit with the Iran news, which caught some people by surprise. But if gold continues its up leg, I think you guys have a really good chance of continuing that uptrend, and especially with all those catalysts you have going on now. And that's kind of where I want to take the interview next, is I kind of want to bridge the fundamentals that you talked about and the technicals. And what I think is interesting is you mentioned at the beginning, people aren't very aware of the New Zealand story, but I think the market's starting to wake up to that. And what I found interesting about your story is with any junior who's kind of in that drilling permitting phase, there's that show me phase that investors kind of wait and they sit on the sidelines until you get the permitting, or they know they have to wait for a year. But what you mentioned with the expedited permitting process, like what aren't investors realizing? Like what's the one thing the market's missing right now and doesn't understand about how well that permitting process works right now?
Yeah, I mean, the one downfall of New Zealand is that it's a small little country, and so there's not a whole lot of projects. There's Oceana Gold, which is a $12 billion gold company that they've gone through the project, but it's one of their multiple projects, so it doesn't pick up headlines for gold investors and things like that. We're then the next, there's an Aussie group called Santana, and so they get a lot of publicity down in Australia. They're an ASX company. They're also going through that fast track process, but then we're the only other North American group that are looking at the fast track. So you've got one gold producer or gold explorer going developer, sorry, that is going through this in a sea of gold companies across the North American markets. So we're just a small voice, I think, in a big sort of saturated gold space. And so it's hard to stand above the crowd and tell everyone how good New Zealand is, because to be honest, a lot of people switch off when they hear New Zealand and they'll move on to something else because they think it's the land of the hobbits and the green hills and things like that. So, but in that lies the opportunity, and that's why I actually jumped at this, because if people aren't aware of it, there's an arbitrage in the market to an undervalued investment. And so you're in this tier one jurisdiction that has great permitting, and people don't know about it. Gives you a leg up compared to people that do know about it, and that's the opportunity to create value essentially.
What about the upcoming election? How do you guys see that going, and does it have any impact on the permitting timeline?
It definitely does, yeah. So New Zealand have a 3-year election cycle, and so November 7 is the next election. And so we're doing a number of things. I mean, the obvious thing is to understand from both sides of the politics what this next government looks like, or if it's the same government, we expect more of the same. And so right now the polls are fairly even, and so we have to de-risk our company as best we can as we move towards that election. And that is why essentially we're going through this accelerated timeline of getting a little 500,000 ounce mine permitted in this current regime. So if we submit all of our documents by October 31 ahead of the election, we're in that fast track process. We've had confirmation from the incumbent groups and the current group that should there even be a change in New Zealand, that they won't touch anything that's in process. So we'll still get that 6-month permitting, and we'll still be able to have a permitted plant and a permitting tailings dam and a starter mine all permitted. So that's one aspect of it. We're de-risking it by moving and exactly as you said, giving the market the show me aspect to say, yep, these guys are doing what they said they're going to do. The other side of it is that group next to me that I mentioned, Endura Mining, with their Snowy River operation, they're going to be producing gold in December, and they got fully permitted under the last regime, which was a harder government to permit a mine under. And it shows that no matter what the political regime is, you'll still be able to get it permitted. It's just whether it's 6 months or whether it's 3 years. And we would like the 6-month regime, obviously. I think it's time is money, and it's very important in this market. So we'll push for that. But the project's not dead, even if it falls into the other election group and we can't get it done in time.
Seems like you guys are handling that really well. My next question would be, you guys put out a 43-101 very early compared to other kind of juniors. Why did you do that, and how does that impact as you're heading into other studies that you want to do this year?
Yeah, so one thing we have to prove to the New Zealand government is that we've got a mine here. And so we've across Reefton, we've got about 500,000 ounces proven up. And we can now go to the government at this early stage in the year and say, look, we've got a real project here. We want to build a mine down in Reefton. Let's get on that fast track process to do that. If we waited another year, I have no doubt that we'll increase our resource and that we'll be able to grow the company through the exploration path. But again, we want to de-risk the company from a political standpoint should any change come. So we needed to get the 43-101 done in February, get the PEA started, which is already underway with Mining One and Pitch Black helping us with that PEA. We'll be completed that by May, and then we'll be ready for a PFS by October when we're submitting our mine permit. So everything, and that's another thing that the market can keep track of us. There's a lot of stage gates which were on that timeline slide on our investor presentation that we need to hit as we're going through to the October deadline that we've set ourselves. And so far we're on track, and we're ahead of schedule actually in terms of meeting each of those timelines. And so that should give the market some confidence that we're going to hit our submission date and we're going to get a permit on that fast track decision. But that's why we're starting small, to get the permit and de-risk, knowing that we can upsize down the road.
I think that's a really smart plan with kind of the environment you're dealing with there, and then also to get some actual confirmation on the books with kind of, the market not only for gold but antimony that you mentioned. I didn't even know you guys had antimony, and that's such a huge thing in the defense industry. So that's just like a nice little kicker on the side that'll be, I mean, really help you keep your costs down.
Yeah, you mentioned New Zealand is that we're a high grade company, and we're really focused on that because our antimony is about 20x what Perpetua's antimony mine is in the US. And so we've got 20 times the grade that they've got out of the Perpetua mine, which means your plant can be 20 times smaller. You move 20 times less dirt to get the same amount of antimony, and the economics are way better. So yeah, it's a really good geological opportunity here to get into high grade operations.
Nice. So here's my final wrap up question is, if we look at the Rua chart, 12 months from now, what would you say is the single biggest fundamental driver? Continued drilling results, the study completion, or the permitting approval, or a combination of all three?
I'm going to cheat and go for two. I'm going to say permitting in the South Island will be a huge re-rate for us. But as I just mentioned, the binary opportunity on the North Island, if we strike something similar to what Wharekirauponga was next door, their discovery hole was 49 meters of 22 grams a ton gold. If we hit something like that up north, then we're in a different stratosphere, and you're now a billion-dollar explorer company, and that would change our focus altogether. So there's two aspects of this: the exploration up north or the development pathway down south.
Well, it sounds like you got the right geo in place to help find that.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for coming on the show. For anyone looking at Rua, where can they find more information about you guys?
Yeah, I think the best, and we put a lot of work into our website. So go to ruagold.com. That's ruagold.com. And our investor presentation is on there, and we keep that up to date as well. So I'd encourage both of those areas.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. That's it for today. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next CEO deep dive. I'm Kevin Steuer. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kevin.